Morning everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to do a quick video this morning like I talked about starting seeds and different methods you can use to do that. Before I do that though, I'm going to go out and take a quick look and give a little bit of an update of what's growing. Sorry if I sound a little bit winded, I just got done working out, so I'm still trying to catch my breath. But yeah, I'm thinking that key lime right there is going to be picked pretty soon. But let's take a look and see what we have out here. It's actually been a little bit cool the past few days, and we're supposed to be down in the 40s this weekend, which is, well, I guess it's not too odd. There's a female flower right there. You can see the fruit kind of behind it there, so we're gonna pollinate that. There's another female flower. Gotta go find a male flower. Although I have seen some bees on these pumpkins recently, so that's a good thing. This flower right here looks like it's about to actually bloom again. I thought for sure it was dead because it's just been kind of sitting here, but this one, there must be one of those silkworm things down in there. That or a spider, one or the other. But just when I thought these pumpkins were starting to wind down, and here they go again. But that's Seminole pumpkins for you. That's one of the things about them rooting as they grow along, is you'll have a section that looks, in the middle there it looks bad, come down here and it looks good because it's rooting all along the way. It's still able to pull up nutrients even though it might be looking bad towards the base, the main roots. But yeah, so let me get this one here. I think that's all, but we'll go check. This guy here, this yellow pear tomato plant is taking over like crazy. And it's loaded with not pears, loaded with tomatoes, although I see some that have already been chewed on, which has been, again, something that I've been struggling with this year, which I don't normally. I don't understand why the pests have been so bad this year as opposed to normal. But you can see some of the pumpkins are getting ripe. Some of them are very close. That one's close to being harvested, and this one down here is very close to being harvested. The best thing to do, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again just to refresh everyone's memory. The best thing is not necessarily to look at the pumpkin itself, but look at the stem. See how it's starting to turn kind of a yellowy brown? That means it's getting close to being ready to be harvested because the stem is dying. If the pumpkin is orange but the stem is still green, it's not ready. It's still pulling nutrients from the stem. So if you see that, just leave it a little bit longer. Once that stem starts to die, then go ahead and cut it, bring it in. You can use it right away, but for best flavor, it's good to let it sit for a few weeks to a month to kind of let the flavor mature and stuff. I love the flowers on these snake beans. Aren't they so pretty? Most beans and peas either have white or yellow flowers, and these have purple flowers. As you can see down at the bottom here, they're starting to grow. None of these are ready yet. They still have a lot to do, a lot of growing to do. But you can tell these have done a lot better back here than the ones up in the front up there. I don't know why they like this spot better. Maybe a little bit of a microclimate that they like better. There's sometimes no telling. But yeah, everything is coming up over here. The okra, the tomato, even the sweet potatoes I planted, some of them are coming up. We'll see how that goes because, you know, if a rabbit finds it, it's a goner. Sweet potatoes are pretty hardy though. They'll usually try to come back like this one down here has been eaten several times, but it keeps coming back. But you can see some of the tomatoes in there. They'll start turning yellow soon. I feel like these okra are not doing all that well. That one's going to be ready to be picked in a little bit. It's better to pick them small. But I feel like they're just looking pretty sad. I don't know why. But I've planted some more. And I'm also, I think I decided the other day, I was thinking to myself, you know, when I got the burgundy okra to grow, it did a lot better. I didn't see the fire ants on it as bad. I didn't see I think there just went a hummingbird. I didn't see, it just seemed to be hardier. So I think I'm going to grow that from now on. I think it's a little bit hardier. But yeah, we get a hummingbird up here on this, it's called a fire spike. And that's why the end of the stem will be down here, and it'll come out, and about right there it starts to make this kind of spike, and these red flowers pop up on that. And the hummingbirds love it because they're attracted to red. So we get this hummingbird on it every now and then. So let's talk about how to start seeds. As you all know, I prefer to start my seeds directly in the ground because I feel like that makes a stronger plant, because the plant already has to harden itself off. It's not like you have to grow it in the shade, then stick it in the sun a little bit, back in the shade in the sun, back in the shade in the sun to harden it off, and then put it out. When you put it in the ground, it immediately has to get used to the environment that it's in or die. So if it's going to survive, it has to toughen up, basically. But let's talk about some of the things you can do. There are things like this, which this is a seed starting tray. This actually, I believe, was I bought some starts and kept this. It's either that or it came in a seed starting kit. I can't remember. But these sort of things are very common. Put some soil in there. You can, a weird noise. You can actually buy seed starting mixtures to put in here, because it has nutrients in it, and the soil, the feel of it is a little bit better for seeds to start. So I'd probably do that or use a potting mix to start seeds in. I wouldn't get just, like raised garden mix or just regular topsoil or anything like that. I would either get the seed starting mix that you can buy, or use some potting soil so the soil's a little bit looser to let the roots grow. But you can start it. These are very, very common. Things like that, and they'll usually come in something like this, these trays. And you can you'll put them in the trays. Here's another form of them. You can see these are smaller, have more of a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess hexagonal shape. And I don't know where there's another one that came with this. But you do the same sort of thing, put the seeds in there with either potting soil or a seed starting mix. Then you water them, and this comes with a lid, and the water that runs off sits at the bottom, and you put the lid on, and it creates a little bit of a greenhouse effect. You've got the water on the bottom that can kind of seep up from the bottom, and then the lid on top keeps it warmer. You'll see it get condensation to keep it moist inside, and that is conducive for seeds to start to germinate. So you'll have a bunch of seeds germinating, and they tell you when that starts to happen to, open the lid a little bit, and then once they get bigger, take the lid off, stick it outside in the shade, and then, let it kind of harden off there, put it in the sun for a little bit, then bring it back into the shade, do that for a while, then put it in the full sun, and then put it out in the garden. So that is a method that you can do it. These are very very common. You can buy these at Home Depot, you can buy these at Lowe's, at any sort of nursery store, you know, anything, anywhere you're going to find these, because they're very, very common. But if I could give a point of advice as far as starting seeds and this sort of thing, I would be more apt to use something like this, or even something like this. It's even a little bit bigger, because I have noticed in the times that I've started seeds this way, in these little, in those small hexagonal cells that are in these things here, the roots don't get as big and as hardy. When you put them in something like this, they can get a little bit bigger, grow a little bit longer, go a little bit deeper, and you have much stronger root system and a hardier plant. You could even start them in things like this, little miniature pots. These would be just as good. It does take some more, it takes more soil, but this lets the roots get even bigger, even stronger, lets the plant get a little bit bigger, so that you have a stronger plant to plant out. So that's one way you can do it, or I guess I should say that's another way, because direct planting, direct sowing is one way. Another way that it is actually a pretty good way, because again it lets the roots get better, is something like this wicking bed that I have, that I'm currently growing romaine lettuce, red romaine lettuce. This, fill it up with potting soil. These sort of things, you need to use something like potting soil again, because if you put your native soil or just regular garden soil in it, it gets too compacted. This needs to have loose soil, one, so that it can wick moisture up from the bottom, and two, because you know you're growing something in a pot, it needs to be able to, the roots don't have the space like they do in the ground. They need to be able to move around freely. And you can amend the potting soil, of course, to add nutrients. A lot of bagged potting soils already have amendments in them, but this is a good way to start seeds. I've done that before. You can come along here and make, in something this size, you can make little rows, little miniature rows, and start seedlings that way. You can just go along and literally take your finger, poke a hole, drop a few seeds in, cover it, and just go along and do that. And when they germinate, thin them out, that sort of thing. Once they get to a certain size, dig them out. Don't just pull them out. You want to dig them out, because you want to get the soil. Like if you had something here, you want to get the soil around it and try not to disturb the roots as much as you can. If you pull it and break the majority of the roots, more than likely you're going to lose the plant. But take a trowel and dig try to dig as much of the roots as you can up. Then take that whole thing with the soil, just like you would out of a pot. Try to keep that soil and put it out in the ground, or put it wherever you're going to grow it, in a raised bed, wherever you want to grow it. So this is one way to do it here. Obviously you can leave things in here, and wicking beds can be really kind of any shape or size you want. You could build your own wicking bed. I just bought this because I wanted to try growing stuff in containers. I've had this for a couple years now, and it does really well to grow stuff like greens, so that's what I'm doing there. You can start seeds. I've seen in sort of a hydroponic setting. Now the case with that is that you really don't have a bunch of soil to plant, but you can make plugs from that, and you can stick those in the ground. I don't recommend doing that method, because I think that it would, a plant would get used to the hydroponic environment, and then you wouldn't be able to transition that into the ground as easily, I don't think. I don't know a whole bunch about hydroponics, but I think that would be best to leave in a hydroponic system than to try to transplant that. So, but yeah, so you could try that. but I don't think it would work as well as doing the seed starting thing or something like the wicking bed. Now, like I said, you can buy just potting soil or soil that's meant for seed starting. There are other things you can buy to amend it. There's actually a book that, if you want to look at how to amend potting soil, that's called the Container Gardener's Bible or something like that. I read that just to get a better idea of how to container garden, and he talks about, when you first container garden, you're going to have to buy a bunch of soil. But what he does is once he buys that soil, he keeps it, and then every year, every season, he scoops out the soil from whatever container it's in, puts it in something like a wheelbarrow, and then takes amendments, mixes it all back in to kind of refresh that soil, then puts it back in the container. That way you're stretching your soil. You don't have to continuously buy bags and bags and bags of soil, because that gets expensive. So you can also somewhat make your own potting soil. David the Good has videos about that on his YouTube channel, where he is making, he takes some bagged potting soil, mixes it with a little bit of native soil, with a little bit of things like wood chips or wood debris, leaf litter, something, if you come out here, something that would be great to mix in if you're making your own potting soil. Something that's great to mix in is stuff like this. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people say that you shouldn't use oak leaves because they're too acidic and they break down too slow. Well, that may not be, I hate to say that's hogwash, because it might not be hogwash, but I use it anyways. I've mulched with oak leaves. I've put oak leaves in soil. It's fine. Yes, they break down slowly, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's like a delayed release nutrient that you're getting, and even if they are a little bit acidic, you can alter that as well, but you're still getting this delayed release nutrients, because as these leaves break down, it gets, just for example, let me show you something. Sometimes it's better to just show you than to. So you got over in here, real quick, we'll look right here. There's not really as much here, and you see, yeah, it's kind of black under there, but it's still pretty sandy, stuff like that. Okay, now come over somewhere like this, where there's all this leaf litter sitting on top. Pull back the leaf litter. Look at the difference. It's a lot loamier, it's a lot darker. You can go back and further into the, an area where there's a lot of leaf litter, and pull the leaves back and start digging in there. You're going to find purely black soil. Why? Because the leaf litter has been sitting there composting. That's what it is. It's compost. It's leaf mold, basically, and all those nutrients are sinking into the ground, making it loamy, nutritious soil for the plants. So you can add things like leaf litter. You can add things like little sticks like this. You can do stuff like that to stretch your potting soil if you don't want to buy bags and bags and bags and bags of potting soil. I would recommend going on and searching David the Good's YouTube channel, find that video where he talks about that. It's a lot more informative than what I am right now, because obviously as David the Good, he's got more experience than me. But he basically talks about the same thing: how to stretch it, how to get more bang for your buck. So yeah, that's what I would say. Those are some of the most common ways to start seeds. Some people will actually take seeds, take a paper towel, soak it, put seeds in the paper towel, and then roll it up or fold it up, let it sit for a little while in like a Ziploc bag or something. The seeds will start to sprout, and then plant them either in planters or in raised beds or in the ground, whatever, because the seed is already germinated, that sort of thing. That's not really, I guess that is a seed starting technique, but that's just basically trying to pre-germinate your seeds. There is sort of a Native American method that I've heard about, where you soak the seeds in warm water overnight, and it makes them germinate better. And there are plenty of ways that I'm missing, I'm sure. So go out, do some research, try to figure out what way you want to try. And if you're not sure, try them all. Like I've talked about before, don't be afraid to try stuff. Let's say if you're going to grow some beans, some cabbage, and some squash, we'll just take those 3, whatever. Take the beans, start them in the ground. Just go directly in the ground or in the raised bed, wherever you're growing. Then take the cabbage and grow them, in a wicking bed like I have up at the front. You try to germinate them there, and then take the squash and do them in those little cell packs. And then see how, try to do all that, see which one you like best. The way that I found that I like to, the reason that I've figured out that I like planting directly into the ground is because I have done enough starting and planting that I've gotten better results from direct sowing. And so that's what I do. But that doesn't mean you're going to like that. So experiment. One way, and I'll leave you with this, one way that David the Good has started seeds is he'll take something that's about this size here, but it's not, you could take just this plastic thing here. If let's say you had bought one of these before and you've lost everything but this plastic, or the other plastic dry rotted and you had to throw it away, you could take just this right here, fill it up with soil, sprinkle seeds in it, let them start to grow, and then dig them out and plant them. You have to thin them off. You need to thin them off. Like, it's always best to plant more than you need, and then go through and thin them off and keep the strongest looking ones, and then plant those. If you try to plant everything, it's going to fail, because the ones that are going to die are going to die. They're just not as strong. But you could use something just like this. Just fill it up with soil and put you some rows of seeds in there, thin them off as they start to sprout, and then stick them out in the garden. What David has done is he had some scrap wood. He built something similar to that, but probably a little bit deeper. He found a spot in the side of his house that's shady. So like for me, this spot right here would be pretty good, because this is the east side of my house. It doesn't get as much sun. If it does get sun, it's not going to get it's not going to last as long. The east side of my house is good. The north side of my house is good. But he built it out of some scrap wood. His was more like a square, and it was probably a little deeper than that. But he just puts potting soil in it, and he put some weed cloth underneath, and he has it sitting over here, and it's basically his little nursery where he starts seeds. That's another thing. That's another way you can do it. You could take something like this. Sit it in this. Put the soil and the plants and everything in this. Fill this thing, of course, water this, and then fill this up with water. Fill it up with water, and sit these inside of it. And it will wick, because these have holes in the bottom to let drainage out. It will pull moisture up from the bottom. You can do that. There are a lot of different ways you can start seeds. Experiment and figure out which one you like best, which one seems to work best for you, and go with that. There's no there is a right and wrong way to do it, but the method of seed starting, whether it be in a container like this, whether it be in a little pot, whether it be in a wicking container in the front there, whether it be directly in the ground, whether it be, however, in the little nursery thing that you build here, however you want to do it, none of those ways are wrong. It's about finding what you like, about finding what works best in your area, in your yard, on your land. So experiment, figure out which one you like the best, and keep doing it, because you'll have more success that way. Plus, you will gain confidence, because hey, this has worked the best for me. I'm going to keep doing it. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So that's just my 2 cents on it. That's some methods of how to do it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. As always, Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will be back next week with a new video. Thank you very much.